What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the Mac Sports Connection podcast, where Alex hosts all things Mac, all things football, all things sports, right here, Mac Sports Connection, baby. The Mid-American Conference best, bringing it only the greats, Mac, to everyone.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Mac Sports Connection podcast, part of the Varsity Podcast Network, presented by Learfield. Man, that is always a mouthful. I'm your host, Alex the Captain. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Had Mac Media Days a couple weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago now. Had some great interviews there, talked to some great coaches, Kent State, Buffalo, Ball State, and I figured why not bring on another Ball State guest. So this week, I'm bringing you guys a special treat, a good friend of mine, Mick Tidrow, the voice of the Ball State Cardinals. Mick, welcome to the podcast.
Alex, I appreciate you having me on. It was great seeing you at Mac Media Days a couple weeks ago, and congratulations on the expansion of your platform, Alex. What you're doing for the Mac has been absolutely fantastic, and to be partnered with the Varsity Network and with Learfield, that is fantastic news, Alex. So first and foremost, congratulations to what you're doing, and thank you for being a huge proponent of the Mid-American Conference.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. It's been a labor of love, but a lot more love than labor, I think. So Mick, let's just kind of get into it. You are not from around here.
No.
You're from Utah. You're from, I think, Petersboro, but I think there's a story here, and I'm going to let you go ahead and kick that off.
Yeah, Alex. So from Petersboro, Utah, it is an unincorporated town.
Okay.
About 20 minutes outside of Logan, Utah, which is where Utah State's located. And the reason it's unincorporated is there's no stoplights. There's not a post office. There's nothing. So
Sure.
You were asking me beforehand, is my address Petersboro or Mendon? Because Mendon has a post office. Well, it's kind of both, because our mail gets sent to Mendon. The zip code is the big key there. But yes, Petersboro. I think when I was growing up, there was like less than 200 people, but now it's grown to be a little bit more. And yeah, so
now there's 250 people, right?
Probably, yeah, a little bit closer to that, maybe even higher, because people love the scenery out there. And I grew up on the base of a 9,000-foot mountain, the Wellsville Mountains, which at the time of growing up, they were the largest mountains for their base size in North America, and we were a mile or two away from the base. So great area, loved it, and Petersboro's home.
That's awesome. So you got to see a lot of, or had the opportunity to see a lot of Holy Wars, a lot of Utah State. So you saw some really great Mountain West games.
Yeah, so I remember the days of the WAC, where Utah State was in the WAC, and all the way back, the Big West and the WAC and all that kind of stuff. But it was always fun to go to those games, Utah State, and I remember one big win in football against Utah up in Logan. Stormed the field. I think I was maybe 14, 15. Everybody storms the field, and just did pure joy and jubilation. And I believe those are the Gary Anderson days before he went to Wisconsin, if I remember right. But yeah, lots of entertaining football, the Stu Morrill days in basketball, where he consistently won 20, 25 games, made some NCAA tournaments. And yeah, those were the days of the youth, going to as many football and basketball games at Utah State.
Oh, absolutely. There's just so much history out west. I think a lot of people want to focus on the history of the East Coast, which, I mean, in fairness, a lot more universities this way. But there have been some absolute classics that have happened really out in the mountains. It's I was out there for Toledo BYU back in 17, or maybe it was 16. Yeah, 2016 is my 26th birthday. I'm dating myself a little bit here. And I drove up, and Toledo lost a classic. It was a barn burner, 55-53. Just an epic game down there at Brigham Young. It was unbelievable. Lavelle Edwards Stadium, right?
Lavelle Edwards Stadium, yeah. The altitude, I guess, plays a factor in it. Baseball flies further at Coors Field in Colorado. Football travels further, I guess, in the mountains of Utah. I don't know. There's something to be said.
So yeah, let's just get into this. So you come from Utah and you find Ball State. Obviously, the goal is, was broadcasting. Why Ball State? I mean, there's so many other universities, especially out west, all over, that you could have landed. Ball State immediately just felt like home to you. You've got 2 degrees here. You're now here as the voice. Like you really love Ball State.
I do, Alex. And the path is a little bit unconventional for me because my dad grew up in Richmond, Indiana. It's about an hour away from Muncie.
Okay.
And my brother still lives out that direction. My grandpa, my uncle, so dad's side of the family located in Richmond still. And going into my senior year of high school, I didn't really have an idea of what I was going to do with my life. I had no experience in anything but baseball. And so I thought I was going to play baseball at the next level, whether that be whatever level. Thought that was going to be the path. And we were on a trip in Yellowstone. My brother here from Richmond, Luke, came out and visited us and went on that trip. And we were just sitting there around the campfire one night, and he's like, "What do you want to do, man?" I was like, Yankee shortstop? Is that up for grabs? I don't know. And he's like, "What about sports broadcasts?" And I kind of looked at him and I was like, "What do you mean? That's a profession?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's what I did for a while." And he went to a couple different schools. He was a director for a news station in Terre Haute, was in the business for a little while. He kind of gave me the lowdown of what it was. And he said, "If you're interested, I know somebody who knows somebody at Ball State, and maybe you could come for a visit during fall break in October." So that's what my mom and I ended up doing. And he knew somebody that knows Chris Taylor, who is the senior director of digital sports production and sports, like the student media program. And I met Chris and the chairman at the time, Mr. Pollard, who has always been gracious to me, and met those two. They gave me a tour of the green screens and everything downstairs in the studios, and just the abundance of opportunities as a freshman. So I had no experience. I had no idea. They had no background on me outside that I was really interested in. I was from out of state. And they took a chance on me. So I'm forever grateful for my brother Luke for putting me on the path, because he's the reason I'm in this. Chris Taylor's the reason I was given a chance, and Mr. Pollard I was given a chance. And from there on, it's just been a joyful journey. Got to campus, like I said, October, and I said, "Where do I apply? How do I do this? What is the path?" And so Chris sent me the application process for SportsLink in the Department of Media, which at that time was called telecommunications. I'm dating myself now. It's no longer telecommunications; it's Department of Media. So, applied to all that, applied to the university, got in, and I knew what my decision was. I applied there and maybe one other school, and I knew I wanted to come here after the visit. So I took a chance on myself. I took a chance on my brother's word about the business, and I took a chance on what SportsLink was and could be, and that's where we're at. And the path has led us to a very joyful journey.
Now let's backtrack a little bit. Baseball player. So did you play shortstop then? Let's talk about that a little bit.
I did not. By my senior year, when I got most of my varsity playing time, I was left field and right field for the most part. But during like the summer ball, I played shortstop, second, and the outfield leading up to my senior year. So I thought maybe, but we had a really good shortstop, Anthony Peterson, that held up that spot. So did not get to play shortstop at the varsity level.
Okay. So the Yankees didn't call you, is what I'm hearing.
No, they didn't, and won't to be a player ever. So yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So, I mean, getting into the broadcast school, getting to do all that. I mean, everybody knows David Letterman. Just what an icon. And the school was recently named after him, or the studio is. What's the story there?
Yes, so we have a lot is named after David Letterman. So WCRD is the student radio station that I was a part of that called basketball, football, and other events on. And the CRD stands for Cardinal Radio Dave, after David Letterman. So I always thought that was a really cool call to David. The Letterman building is where the Department of Media is housed at. So Mr. Letterman's name is all over that. And then the studios inside of the Letterman building. Letterman Studios is kind of just the generic name for it. So yeah, David Letterman is prominent all across campus, especially in the Department of Media. And there's also a very cool wall that has some of his awards, accolades, and accomplishments on the wall in the Department of Media. So he got his footprint all over. He's come back to campus a couple times in recent years to do some fun things with Peyton Manning, and comes on campus and does speeches and things like that. So we're very grateful to what David has done for all of us on campus and helped set a standard. And it's always cool to see him come back. I haven't been able to really meet him in person. I've been in the vicinity of him, but he's always just a smiling figure and somebody that everybody's talked very highly of. So yeah, Letterman is all over Ball State.
I remember growing up not watching the David Letterman show. I was too young. Mom wouldn't let me stay up that late. But I remember our local radio station, actually, the guy, Todd Walker, from Bowling Green, working for WIMA in Lima. They would replay his top 10 list every morning. So I always love listening to the David Letterman top 10. So when I found out he was a Ball State alumni, I just thought that was such a cool thing. Let's talk your first year doing radio coverage. I think you did some sideline work as well. Talk about the mix of emotions getting to do your first call.
As a student?
Yeah, let's go as a student, and then we'll transition into the professional side.
Goodness gracious, Alex. That's a loaded question. My first ever broadcast was the sideline reporter for WCRD as a freshman, women's basketball. And I only got the position because one of my good buddies, Jacob Bartleson, was in one of the management positions at the studio. And he was like, hey, just give it a try. Like, try out for a position. You don't have experience, but just like, give it a try. Just go to the audition, see what happens. I was nervous. And I almost just didn't fill out an application and go through with it. And I'm like, what am I here for? I'm here to do this. Just take the risk and put yourself out there. So he holds the tryouts. I get the position. And my first broadcast, I had as a pregame host, I had every word written out that I was going to say because I was terrified. I was like, I've got to make sure I've at least got this down to some degree to where I sound like I can talk about Ball State women's basketball. It was bad, to say the least. It was really bad. It was not good. Grateful they let me stay on the air after that, but just the nerves of going through that for the very first time was something I'll always remember. And my first play-by-play opportunity on television was my sophomore year of field hockey match. And it was against ranked Iowa and Ball State here in Muncie. And the thing that sticks out to me the most about that was I don't like admitting this, but I'll admit it. Because we had an ESPN producer that was there on site that day to, help the student production and all that. But rolling the outro, the list of like, you watched ESPN, this is a presentation of ESPN. And I obviously tried to memorize it before that they actually showed up, but I kind of got just sucked into the moment and forgot it. And usually we have a sheet, and I knew where the sheet was pregame. The match is going on, and I can't find it. And I am just terrified of what is about to happen in the next 10 seconds because they're in my ear of like, hey, we need you to get to the rollout. And so I'm just panicking. I'm looking at our stage manager. I'm looking at our analyst. I'm looking down. I'm like, don't know where it's at. And I thought I had hit talk back, but I guess it didn't go. And I just, over the air, you can hear me in the background say, I can't find it. And I'll never forget that day as a huge learning moment. Always have your ducks in a row. Always make sure your papers are lined where they need to be. And just slow things down. Slowing things down is okay. But that is my big story of the first TV event that I'll never forget. And just very, again, grateful that they continue to let me be on the air after that incident. So
that's, you talk about just those nerves. I think, and I've talked to other broadcasters. I've talked to, Adam Jacksa up at Central Michigan, of course, Russ Eisenstein, or from now formerly from Ohio.
Yeah.
Congrats to him on moving forward a different direction with his career. But it's one of those things that I think everybody talks about getting a little bit nervous. And I think that's normal. Because you're doing a presentation, you have to get a little bit nervous because then you're focused. You're like, all right, I know I'm thinking about this. If you go in and you just do it, I mean, it's not going to be a great product because you're just phoning it in. And I think those nerves are important. And sounds like you got quite a dose of them those first 2 times.
You're right. I did. And I walked away from that just, oh, what's this ESPN producer going to say to me? Like, oh, I'm in so much trouble. He didn't end up saying a word. Didn't say a word because either he didn't catch it or he knew I knew about it and was like, okay, I don't need to bring that up. Right. One of the two.
He should. We'll go with that. He didn't catch it, or that he did and just decided, we'll show him a little grace. I like that. I like that story better.
I have a hunch that he probably heard it.
Well, if you said we can hear it on the broadcast, yeah, you're probably right.
Very grateful for his grace in that case.
No, there we go. So obviously you wrap up the degree. What game, aside from your first, of course, but what games kind of stick out to you the most from your undergrad degree that were just kind of like, yeah, I'm going to make it, or kind of whoa, we really just got to do that?
Yeah, the biggest, well, we just got to do that moment was when Ball State men's basketball went up to Purcell Pavilion at Notre Dame and shocked ranked Notre Dame. And Taylor Persons hitting that buzzer beater 3-pointer from the left wing. And that was moments of chaos where I don't remember making the call because of being so in the moment of what was happening.
Sure.
And it was really cool because it was my senior year of undergrad. I had a chance to call a team that was really good. It was a really fun team and a lot of talented players. And a non-conference win like that early in the year, it was like, wow, are you kidding me? Like, this is actually happening. And yeah, that'll always stick out to me forever, just because that was a moment of excitement and adrenaline and one of the highest of high moments of TP's career in college, but also one of the biggest wins in Ball State men's basketball history.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I actually remember that game. I feel like I remember just not watching it, of course, but I remember catching the score and I'm like, I'm sorry, Ball State did that, because I mean, and I'm sure that was the reaction around not only the rest of the league, but the rest of the country as well. Who's Ball State? It's just a lot of what an incredible opportunity and how cool to be there to make that call. And just so many cool moments surrounding that.
Oh, it was great. I don't know if Notre Dame's going to want Ball State back anytime soon. I don't think they've called back to have a matchup since. So
not in basketball anyway, right?
Yeah, and Ball State almost beat them in football.
Yeah, I know.
The following fall. So it was. Yeah, I don't know if we'll get a call back from Notre Dame for a while.
Notre Dame lost every phone number for every person in Muncie.
Might be the truth.
So cool. So you decide, I finished the undergrad. I'm not done here yet. Let's flip to the master's degree. Talk about going through your master's program and talk about kind of the other responsibilities, things you got to continue to do. Your thesis was, what was your thesis on?
Yeah. So the decision to do a thesis was one I had made up as soon as I got to grad school, because we could have done a creative project or a thesis.
Okay.
And with all the experience that I had in my undergrad with creative projects, broadcasting, I wanted to challenge myself and do something a little bit different. And writing a 100-page paper, I guess, was the best idea that I had. And I wrote that on esports broadcasting and the evolution of it and what that looked like in 2018 through 2020. I will say that Ball State did not have an esports team at the time, and now they're very renowned across the country. So that has changed significantly. I think my thesis is so far out of date now, even though it was published in 2020, probably very out of date. But I wanted to go that route to challenge myself, do something different. And I thought it would be really cool to be published in that way. To go back to the start of why grad school, I was prepared to take a job in minor league baseball in Missoula, Montana, in rookie ball under the Arizona Diamondbacks organization. And I did do that for the summer after my undergrad finished up. But I also knew that there was a step I wanted to take and get more experience with Learfield, more experience at the Division I level. And I had conversations with Chris Olm, who was the head of sports properties at the time. And then Learfield kind of took over from there in terms of the operations and ownership of the radio rights. But that opportunity came through to call women's basketball and be the football sideline reporter. And I didn't want to turn that down. That was a great opportunity right out of undergrad. And I was able to get a master's degree on top of that. So a lot of really good factors paired into one to come back and get a degree and further my education, which I always take a lot of pride in. And I think it's an important piece of life in my case. So there were some factors, but the extra broadcasting, opportunity to challenge myself with a thesis and make more friendships here, because sure. I had met and interacted with, at the time, Director of Athletics Beth Getz and some of the folks within the athletics department. But just from my undergrad time, I didn't get as much interaction with them as I did with my graduate time. And I think that time helped build and establish relationships to be able to ultimately come back here in a full-time role as the voice of the Cardinals. So I think that is a huge piece of the journey.
So moving from your grad program, of course, you worked for the Indoor Football League. I mean, that feels like it's a much different experience than working in college athletics.
Alex, it really is. So the company I worked for out in North Dakota for 2.5 years owned a team in the Indoor Football League. So naturally, our network had the rights to the team, and it was really fun. So we got to do, within that network, I had the chance to do Indoor Football League, collegiate sports, high school sports, other semi-professional sports, and gain a bundle of experience. So we probably called at least 250 events a year.
Oh, wow.
Per broadcaster, because we would jump on analyst or play-by-play. So we got a lot of experience in those 2.5 years. And Indoor Football League was a piece of that. My second year there, they traveled us as a part of the package on Stadium as well. So we were able to do like a Stadium Game of the Week national TV package, and they traveled us to call those games. We got to go to like Phoenix, Boston, Des Moines, Iowa, so many fun, interesting places. And that experience was great because of the pace of the Indoor Football League and what that looks like, help challenge on a TV standpoint what a cadence can be. And also, like, it helped out for the college game and other football because they're a little bit slower and they have more space on the field where a touchdown isn't going to happen in 0.2 seconds.
Right.
But yeah, I love the experience of the IFL. That was a lot of fun.
Then obviously you talk about working up at North Dakota State. I mean, that's Division I. Everybody wants to talk about, oh, it's FBS, SCF. North Dakota State, that's Division I. I mean, that's a huge opportunity. Talk about transitioning from that. Obviously Ball State has an opening. You talk, or people talk about, you're the third broadcaster in 70 years after, Maury Manny's and Joel Gaudette. Like, talk about that, just door opening up. I mean, those are icons in Ball State broadcasting history.
Yeah, they are. It's a great point, Alex. And
not that you're not. I want to be clear. I
appreciate that.
You're early in your career. You haven't earned legend status just yet.
No, I totally agree. When Joel announced he was leaving in March of 22, get my dates right. Yeah, March of 22. I was on a road trip back from high school tournaments for basketball, and it was late at night, and I had seen his tweet, and I thought, oh, I didn't realize he was leaving. And people started texting me and calling me, and I'm like, so people are finding out about what's going on. And I reached out to Joel and just said, congratulations on a great run. Like, you did a fantastic job, and you helped elevate what the standard was that Maury set, just awesome job. Congratulations. Because I worked with Joel for a few years as a GA and got the chance to work with him. So once that happened, I waited about a week and then started sending out emails and made phone calls to people and just said, hey, I know you all are very far away from making a decision. There's not even an application process yet, but if that becomes available, I would love to be considered. And whatever that looks like, I would love to be kept in the loop. So had conversations with people throughout the time from March to June, and then the application process started, and had a couple of interviews with the department, and it all kind of fell into place from there. But it was that process from March to June of we'll see if it's possible. And then as the process went on, it was okay. This is looking good. And got the offer as I was pulling in to my current, at the time, work office, and had the phone call. Sean Sullivan, the deputy athletics director at the time, was the one that called me and just said, hey, Mick, would you like to be the next voice of the Cardinals? And I just kind of froze.
Yeah.
And I had chills run down my spine. I was like, oh my gosh, like that is one of the coolest things I've ever heard. Like it's just gratitude started to just pour out because of the people that are at Ball State, the time I spent there. And for those words to be uttered is a massive, massive honor. Like you said, following Maury and Joel, and to be at that position at the age of 26, to get that offer at an FBS level is very humbling. And I'm very, very grateful for all of that. But the process was, it felt like years from March to June, because my wife is from Indiana and Gabby is, she's got family in Indiana, and it was great to be able to move back and be a part of the Indiana culture again. So, and to do it at a place that we both love and where we met each other is special. So, yeah, that was a very career and life defining moment when that phone call was made. And I, of course, later that night, I said, flattered, obviously, just want to talk to my wife, make sure everything's okay. I'll call you back. So I did the game that I had to do, go home. We talk it over. Obviously it's a yes. And we made the phone call that night, but yeah, those are memories I'll never forget.
Yeah. Just such an incredible rush of emotions. Just like my alma mater wants me to take this over. I can't imagine being in that position. Just so powerful.
It is, Alex. And there were so many times as a student where I'd pass the radio network booth and we'd go down to the WCRD booth at the very end of the third floor of the press box. And I just, you look at it and you don't think much of it, but all the times passing that, the reps gained and the experiences put in paved the way for it. And it's really, like I said, it's very humbling just to even be considered for the position. And you mentioned it, but the piece of coming back to the alma mater it's just so cool because not a lot of people get that opportunity. And I realized that, and that's something that sticks with me every day. So very grateful for so many people 2 years ago that rolled the dice on me. Didn't worry about concerns with age or anything like that, because I know sometimes that can be a factor. Lots of really, really strong candidates that they could have went with that graduated from the university, that didn't graduate from the university, but just super grateful for it. It's gone and played out.
And I think it's important too. Especially in a league like the Mid-American Conference that's so intimate, it's great to have those guys who actually know the history of the program, who know the players, who know the coaches. Sure, you can bring out a guy who knows these things because they're just a great storyteller throughout college sports, but to have somebody who has walked the same halls, who has talked to these coaches as an undergrad, as a, whatever, asking dumb questions as a freshman, it's like
plenty of those for me,
That's and I've been doing this podcast for 5 years and I still ask dumb questions, so I don't think that ever goes away. And
I've heard it today, so I think you're good.
Perfect. And so I think I think that just having that somebody who's intimately related to the organization and the program, I think that carries a lot of weight. So it's been cool having you kind of do this. And obviously you've had me on your podcast. You have a podcast through the university. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question, Alex, and appreciate when you did jump on. That was a great episode to dive into you and the MAC. So when I took my first year was a different role than what I had this past year, and then what I'll have coming up this year as well. So I took on some more responsibilities starting last year, and our athletics director and I kind of sat down and mapped things out. And Jeff Mitchell was very open and really wanted the idea of an all-inclusive athletics podcast, which would include conversations with him almost every week. And we did 38 episodes this first year, and I think he was on all but maybe 2 or 3 because he wanted to be a part of it. He wants people to know where he stands in the department, where the university, where the athletics department is within regards to all the changes in athletics at the college level. So that really sparked from a conversation between me and him of, hey, let's just do this. Let's start year 1 and just go for it, interview coaches, athletes, people outside the university as well to help push Ball State forward. And it's great. I love being able to interview and have conversations with all the different folks, from coaches to athletes to administrators to you, Alex, where you get to learn people's stories and what Ball State means to them, or what the conference means to them, or how they're affected on a day-to-day basis with their program or their team. So yeah, that podcast has been great, and hoping to have some changes to it this upcoming year that will help elevate it. So we'll see. Stay tuned on that.
You guys heard it here first. Changes are coming.
Hopefully have a really cool added element to it. But we'll start that back up here in probably less than a month. Yeah, it's already July. So yeah, we'll get this thing rolling relatively soon.
That's awesome. Now I kind of want to talk about, now that you've done the voice for 2 years now, I want to talk about some of these other broadcasters that you may have looked up to, not necessarily from Ball State, from other schools from throughout the industry. How have you gotten over that feeling of now we're colleagues, or is that not gone away yet?
It's not gone away. It's not gone away because I look at them and people that helped me during my time in school, and folks that lended an ear or just their time. And now people are like, yeah, call me whenever. I'm like, what? Like, excuse me? But mentors that have helped me since day one, Brandon Godden is at the top of the list. He's been somebody that has been so gracious with his time since I was a sophomore in college, of listening to my terrible tapes and providing feedback. I can't say enough about him and other folks, but there are mentors out there that have spent so much time and energy and effort to help. And that's one thing that I'll always take with me, is the help that they gave me is what I want to pass along to anybody that ever asks, because I've been helped literally every step of the way. And that is never lost on me, because I'm here because of the help and the work of other people. And those mentors are a huge piece of that. And to be able to walk into an opposing booth and meet Mr. Kessling at Tennessee, it's really cool to meet him after hearing his iconic calls for so many years for Tennessee. And you get to meet so many awesome people that you maybe never thought you would interact with in your life. So yeah, the mentor piece of it is a very cool aspect of this job.
It's funny you bring up that Tennessee game. I was there in the audience.
I didn't know that. What?
I have family down in Knoxville. And so I made the trip down in 2022 because that was part of I wanted to just do a month of September, just hit as many MAC games as I could. And then that was the precursor to me doing a MAC game at every stadium last year. So I drove down for that game, and I'm like, I've got family down here. I don't want to do anything with media. I want to just enjoy the game. I almost wish I had applied for credentials because my family did not stop ribbing me. I was wearing this T-shirt, funny enough.
That's
wearing my Charlie Chirps T-shirt, and it was, yeah, they were trying to get me to sing Rocky Top. I know the lyrics only because they played it a million times.
You better refuse, though, even if you did.
But yeah, no, I did not give in. I stayed strong. I memorized the Ball State fight song for that night and didn't get to sing it very often, but we had a great time. I mean, what a beautiful stadium down there.
Yeah, Neyland Stadium was a great experience, and you talk about nerves walking to that place. My first FBS
that was
game.
your first game, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Walked into that stadium and was like, oh, okay, sit down and just belong, act like you belong. Yep. All is well. I've done this for a long time. Nope. Yeah, there were definitely some nerves for that one too. But glad you wore that shirt.
Oh yeah, I had to be the. It was funny. Somebody on Twitter saw the photo. He's like, "Hey, I think I walked past you," and I was like, "You probably did." I was one of like 10 Ball State fans there. Actually, no, Ball State had a really good contingent. I was really surprised.
We did. It was on the far side from our booth. I think, far left side. I think there was a really good contingent.
Yeah, there was a nice group of people there. And then obviously, so you've seen some other great stadiums as well. You've been to Kentucky, you've been to Georgia. Talk about some of those cathedrals to college football that you've gotten to broadcast from.
Yeah, those were really awesome experiences last year. Kentucky and Georgia. That was last year. Wow. It's all blends together sometimes. Kentucky Kroger Field was great. They treated us so well there, and the updated aspect of the venue was great. Athens was fantastic, being between the hedges and just walking down on the field and seeing the history and feeling the history, and walking past the doghouse on the field was really cool too. I think my favorite part about going to opposing stadiums is the tradition that you feel and you see it, and you can tell that there is tradition everywhere. So the venues that we've gone to in my first 2 years, you can feel that, and it's really cool to see what those environments are like.
Any MAC stadiums that you really enjoy going to? I won't ask you about the ones you don't like going to, but any MAC stadiums you always look forward to going to?
Yeah, Alex, I think that the MAC has really good stadiums. I think the atmospheres are all great too, but one place that I really enjoy going to is I like Oxford as a place to go to and look at the view and see the stadium and the press box and all that. Oxford's great. I'll say this because you're hosting. I like Toledo's press box and the space there too.
You don't have to say it. You can say Ohio now too. That's where I'm doing grad school, so you can say both.
Fair. That's fair. I think that there's a unique aspect of every venue, and I include basketball venues to that too. Every place has the charm of their school, and I think that is one reason I love the MAC, is because they embrace that.
That's I think when you talk about basketball arenas, that's something that I'm not as well versed in. Football's kind of been the bread and butter, of course, but I mean, you're right. There's so many cool basketball arenas in this league. I've always been partial to Savage, of course, but I mean, Ball State's
place is rocking. Always rocking.
It's unreal, especially for the women. Toledo loves women's basketball, which I think that's so good for this sport. I mean, they constantly rank top 25 nationally in attendance. I mean, that's a huge deal. But I think Ball State's got a great barn. Western Michigan, they got a solid place. I mean, they're just, each of them has their own charm, and I think that's what's really cool about it.
Yeah, that's why I love the MAC. The MAC is full of charm and a lot of hidden gems within this conference.
Do you have, since you've been the voice, do you have a favorite broadcasting moment, a game? And it doesn't have to just be football. I mean, I know you do basketball, field hockey. I know you've done a bunch of these other sports. Any game that sticks out to you is like, this is my crown jewel as of right now.
Oh man, Alex, that's a hard question. I don't know if I have a direct answer to that.
Okay.
Because so many do stick out. I could do the easy route and say the Tennessee game. My first year in my first game, just because that the magnitude of that moment of what that meant for me, what that meant for the department, what that meant for the broadcast team, what it meant for Learfield to have somebody new come into this space and be a part of it. So I would say that game probably sticks out the most because of that, but there have been so many moments since then in between that have helped define the journey. But if I have to pick an answer, I think I'll do that one.
All right. I can work with that answer. This year, Ball State football, big year. 100 years of Ball State football.
Yeah.
Really cool moment for you to be a part of that, of course, as the voice. Anything special that you guys have planned that you can reveal to people?
That we can reveal to people?
I don't want to get you in trouble. I don't want Jeff Mitchell sending me an email.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that's already out there is the 100th logo. The 100-year logo, I think,
sharp-looking logo.
A very, very awesome design. And that's been out there. So it's really cool to see that be a part of it. But there are cool things surrounding that logo that are coming. That's about as far as I can tease that.
That works.
But yeah, there'll be some fun things that our marketing team puts together as well, and that help make the experience of celebrating 100 years all come together. So yeah, be on the lookout, Ball State fans, MAC fans, of what that 100-year celebration looks like throughout the year.
That's cool. I'm excited to see what happens with Ball State and with the program this year. I had a really great conversation with Mike New, one of my favorite conversations every year at Media Day. Just such a good guy who you can just tell he lives and breathes football.
He does, and have to respect him for that and so much more. But he's passionate about it. He's had, the opportunity to do this for almost a decade now as the head coach at Ball State, and I think it's really cool to have, in his case and in my case, like we're both alum of the school and get to be in roles with Ball State. So I'm always rooting for Mike, and I think he has a really good team coming up this fall, and he's been energized by what that team looks like. So yeah, I think I'm glad that you guys get to talk every time you go to Media Day, because those conversations are great to listen to. And Mike's a great interview, and somebody that is always super passionate about what his program's doing.
Well, I tell you this, I think one of the things that always sticks out to me is you see videos of his players just rallying around him. Yeah. You get coaches who like the players support them, and that's great. But you literally see the Ball State players rally around him. To me, that speaks volumes about the kind of person he is. And if you're listening, Mike, yes, we're talking you up here. But I really, really love and respect what Mike New is doing to try to make Ball State a consistent figure in this conference.
For sure. I think the perfect example of what you just said, connected with the players, is when they had the game-winning kick against NIU last year on national TV, the post-game interview with all the players coming over and hyping him up and hyping each other up. I think that exemplifies what the program is and how they do stay connected.
Absolutely. So as we kind of wrap this up, talk to me about, I asked this to all my coaches, players, administrators, alumni connected to the programs. What does it mean to you to be a part of, well, I'll say Ball State, but to be a part of the Mid-American Conference?
Yeah, Alex, I think being a part of the Mid-American Conference is an honor, because you look at the FBS Division I conferences, there's not very many of them. And the MAC has been nothing but great and supportive of everything Ball State has done since I've been here, especially. And the way that they handle their business has been great. And the unity that the conference has, like just listening to Commissioner Steinbrecher at MAC Media Day, I think reinforces, there are changes coming. And the MAC might not have a say in those changes. And that might be uncomfortable for a lot of people. But he preaches unity. He preaches doing this together and finding a path. And that is what I've always liked about the MAC, is that they're sticking together. And they're making it work with one another, and whatever hurdles are thrown at them, they'll try and figure it out. So they've been a part of a conference that has that type of an attitude is uplifting to me. It's gratifying, and it's special to be a part of that, and especially being at a school like Ball State that loves being in the MAC and has been a staple of the MAC for so long now that it all ties that together.
Awesome. Well, guys, this was Mick Tidrow, the voice of the Ball State Cardinals. Mick, go ahead and plug your socials. Where can people find you? Where can they find the podcast? I'll give you the floor to do so.
No, I appreciate that, Alex. So my social media handles are just at Mick Tidrow. Very simple on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. The podcast, if you have Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iTunes, iHeart, you can just search This Week in Ball State Sports. and it'll pop up right there. And we've got all 38 episodes. We had a Mac Media Day special that I threw some audio up there as well. So some fun content that if you want to go back through the archives and listen to, but podcast is coming back starting here in a couple weeks.
Awesome. Again, this is Mick Tidrow. Mick, thank you so much for joining me this week on the show. I appreciate it. It's been an honor to hear your story, to talk to you, and chop it up a little bit. Always great to catch up with you.
Yeah, always great to catch up with you, Alex. Appreciate you having me on the show. And again, thanks for all you do for the MAC and for Ball State, promoting the schools and the conference and all the programs. So thank you, and chirp, chirp, go Cards.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next week.